I am delighted to introduce my co-conspirator, our wonderful coordinator for today. Beth Rosenberg is an educator who works with teachers, students, technologists, academics, parents, families, and schools. She holds a BA and an MA in art history and an MS in educational technology, and is on the faculty of the Integrated Digital Media Program at NYU Tandon School of Engineering in Brooklyn. A parent of a teen who learns differently, she is an advocate for students with disabilities and is the founder and director of TechKidsUnlimited.org, an educational technology not-for-profit program for special needs youth. Beth will introduce our panelists for today.
Hi, everyone. I know some people in the room, and I'm glad that that you're all here to hear our Autism Entrepreneurship panel. I've been working with Debbie for about 7 years, and I was delighted that she decided to, really have this panel. Her idea was, can we get a group of people together who are thinking about employment for people with autism in new ways? And then I said, well, could I moderate it? And she said, yes. So here we are. Okay, so we have a really wonderful panel, and I'm not going to spend the time introing everyone, because if you open up your brochure, you can read their bios, and I'm not going to read their bio. I just will introduce them with a quick, this is what I'm going to introduce them with, the date that they started their venture, their endeavor. So to the left of me is Jonah Zimiles from Words Bookstore from Maplewood, New Jersey, and he started his business in 2008. And then we have Marjorie Madfis from Yes She Can. She left IBM in July 2013. She began planning her non-for-profit autism entrepreneurship venture in August 2013. She started focusing full-time on it in September 2013. She got incorporated in November 2013. She works fast. And then she opened her first Girl Again boutique in Westchester in February 2014, and she received non-for-profit status in August 2014. And then we have Patrick Bardsley sitting near Marjorie, who is the CEO of Spectrum Designs. He started in 2010, and they were incorporated in 2011. And then you have me. I started Tech Kids Unlimited at the JCC Manhattan. My friends are over there. Incubated this idea of, could we teach kids with technology to learn how to code? And the truth is we can. And here we are many years later. So I started in 2009. I started partnering with Pace University in 2011 while I was doing my master's there. And then in 2013, I brought the program to NYU Tandon School of Engineering, where we now see 250 kids a year. And we are supported by foundations, corporations, and individuals. So what we're going to do is we're going to show a brief video of every single person's venture. And then I have a list of questions that we've discussed, the panel and I have discussed, that we would like to talk to you about, some strategies and how-tos. And then what we would like to do is take your questions, okay? So how about we just queue up, we'll do Tech Kids Unlimited. These are each like 3-minute videos, mini videos about the program. Maybe we could put the lights down a little bit. So first we're going to show Tech Kids Unlimited. Then we're going to show Words Bookstore, a new beautiful piece that just came out about them. But FYI, Jonah's last name is spelled wrong. So if you want to reach him, look at his last name, how you spell it. And then we're going to show two short pieces about Marjorie's program, Yes She Can, and then we'll show a piece about Patrick's program, Spectrum Designs, where you should get all your T-shirts from. I know, we do at Tech Kids Unlimited. So, okay, ready? What's kind of amazing when you walk into a Tech Kids Unlimited class is it's very quiet. like everyone's focused. And they say kids with special needs can't focus. They can focus if you give them something that they want to focus on.
It's like an opportunity for young students like me to learn computer programming and other computer courses. I liked computers and I wanted to know programming because it lets me get to see what normal people who buy software don't see. I have multiple buildings.
So my role at Tech Kids Unlimited is to give the kids technical skills that will help them as they grow up. Each class we do is project-based, which means they leave each week with something that they can show the world that they've created.
Today people are making like drawings and stuff in SketchUp. Well, I made a train. So you have to like almost draw the whole thing.
Yeah, so you give it a train, so that's your first building. Do you have any objects yet?
And I started Tech Kids Unlimited really out of fear. It wasn't like I set out to start or found a non-for-profit. I really have just been on this journey for 15 years with my younger child, Jack, who, was an early intervention kid. For me, he's the inspiration behind this whole program. He likes to call himself the co-creator, which is fine.
I kind of like promote it. I kind of like tell people all this cool stuff with computers, and then they just get all excited. And then they sign up, so like I'm kind of a co-founder.
And many of the kids here may not make it through that higher education learning. And then the question is there a way for these kids to get a ton of things on their resume so that they could get internships and then maybe even jobs?
I really like computers and stuff, and I feel very proud and confident of myself. And I wanted to use these skills for a job in the future.
That was actually an old video from 2 years ago. But Jonah has a new video, so we'll start with a new video, right? It's pretty new.
You don't have a new video?
It's new, isn't it? No?
Well, it's nice.
It's nice. It's a beautiful video. No, you can just show the next video.
Today we look at a business that has put a lot of thought into employee fulfillment. With a dual mission as a haven for people with autism and a hub of community life, Words Bookstore has managed to craft jobs for their everyday staffers as well as kids with autism working in the store's vocational training program. They're making employee empowerment work, chapter and verse. In the quiet New York City suburb of Maplewood, New Jersey, another independent bookstore almost disappeared. That was until Jonah and Ellen Zimmerles came to the rescue, even though they knew nothing about the book business.
Part of what we bought with the bookstore was sort of the staff, or the goodwill of the store, and the staff all came with us.
When Jonah came, he didn't have a bookstore background, so he was depending on us to be able to help him out with that.
With the change in ownership came a change in management style. The former bookstore owner was hands-on, doing most of the work of the store herself.
There wasn't that much for anybody else to do, and we all kind of just came in and worked our shift, and that was that. With Jonah, it's definitely more, there's more of a hierarchy.
A recent graduate of business school, Jonah was very interested in the idea of job crafting to better utilize the talents of his staff.
It's changing the jobs to fit the people rather than the people to fit the jobs. Now, that can't always work 100%. Can I help? Sure. Sometimes we'll have to buckle down and do something that we're not good at or we don't like. But as much as possible, I think it's in everyone's interest if people are doing what they're good at and what they like to do.
With an experienced staff already in place, he worked with each of them to determine their likes and dislikes and did his best to play to their strengths.
He spent a lot of time working with several of us who had been there for a period of time to figure out what our needs were and who was going to handle what responsibilities and who was comfortable doing what. And we sort of divvied up the jobs that way.
So, for instance, Trish does the ordering, and that's really her specialty. I do the scheduling, the tech stuff, things like that. And I do have a lot more responsibilities now than I did before.
With the day-to-day operations being run by the newly empowered staff, the Zimmerleys had time to try something else that was near and dear to their heart. With a son diagnosed with autism, the family wanted to expand the mission of the store to be a welcoming environment to people with special needs.
My son happens to be on the spectrum, and so there's an understanding here. And it's just very comforting for me. I feel at home when I come here. I don't feel awkward. If he should, freak out or have an episode and just start screaming or whatever he may do, I don't think anybody here is going to care.
The Zimmerleys also created a vocational training program where kids with special needs could develop skills they could use in everyday life.
The hardest thing in applying for a job is not having any experience. It's particularly a problem for people with special needs, but for all of us when we apply for jobs. And so my thought was that we could provide the first job or experience on a resume so that people could leave us with real-life job experience and a recommendation for another job.
I learned about teamwork and cooperation. I learned about organization. I learned a lot of good skills here.
He's not going to be protected for the rest of his life. He can't be. He's not going to be able to function that way, nor would I want him to. So having this sort of as a stepping stone or as an initiation to the real world is wonderful and is invaluable to him and to me as a parent.
Terrific. Thanks a lot, Zach.
You're welcome.
That's great. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
The job crafting approach used by the Zimmerleys has revitalized the bookstore and made all of the staffers at Words more engaged and fulfilled in their jobs.
I'm a lot more vested now, so when I go home, I think, oh, geez, well, I forgot to do this, and then I'll know, all right, first thing in the morning, I gotta come back and do that.
It's worked terrifically well to be empowered to make decisions and to help run the place, because they've been here since the very beginning, have a real ownership interest in the store. They really take pride in this place. This is their place, and they started it.
It's also given people with autism a chance at a better life.
The hiring of someone with special needs is a very good business idea. It actually, sometimes they will do jobs that other people, that it's hard to get a college graduate to stick with. They're very good workers. They show up, all weather, any time of day. They're there on time. There's a role that you have that you think work for them. It actually is a win-win for everybody.
Bye, guys. See you, Jonah.
Working here because it gives me an opportunity to learn social skills applied to a workplace.
Maki is 23 years old. She graduated from Manhattanville College. She's a very bright kid. The two primary issues that we work on with Maki is flexibility and understanding social cues. What are the hidden messages when people are speaking?
She helps me understand whether others are still talking to me through nonverbal cues. I have some trouble being flexible and open to new things. Originally, I wanted to use the white computer, but all of them were taken, so I had to use a black computer I'm not really comfortable using.
So we work on that flexibility in lots and lots of different ways. Maki, when she starts working, gets very, like many of our trainees, get very involved in what they're doing and don't really notice that other people are walking into the store. So I have assigned Maki that she is the greeter, which forces her to shift her attention from what she's doing to customer.
I would be asked to do more than one thing, even when I do not feel like being interrupted. I had to shift from one task to another.
There are very few places where you can get work experience and develop the social skills, the work skills. We're not making up stuff for them. They are in a real life store with people who are coming in. We're not role playing. This is a work environment. At the same time, many different issues come up that can be discussed very clearly, very directly, and feedback given very directly.
I like learning social cues and norms at Girl Again.
My dreams are to be an actress and a makeup artist.
I would like to work with
Samantha Parkington is being raised by her strict but loving and wealthy grandmother, Grand Mary.
Oh, that's Susie. People who are mentally
My dreams are to be an actress and a makeup artist.
I would like to work with the mentally ill, especially people who are mentally ill and on the autism spectrum.
I would like to either be like a counselor for kids or a preschool teacher.
I would like to have a clerical job someday because I would like to earn money.
To earn money and to get my own place and be independent.
I just have a little voice inside of me that said, you should build up some work skills for you, of yours.
What's challenging for me is like math, so money, and like organization.
Sensory problems.
Big crowds and loud sounds.
I have some trouble being flexible.
Girl Again, I am working on my time management skills.
I'm learning how to persevere and not give up, like if I'm like looking for something and I can't find it, just to keep going.
It gives me an opportunity to learn social skills applied to a workplace.
Sherry has been helping me a lot with the American Doll inventory, the price tags.
She's helped me understand like what it means to be at work and coming on time and communication, and just hoping that like the way I talk to people is both appropriate and just friendly.
This is helping me so that when I'm done with college, I'll feel more prepared when it comes to getting a job.
I have more confidence now to go and interview for a real job.
When I was a kid, I didn't think I'd be able to really do much because I have what I have. It'd be a really cool way to prove my past self wrong, that I could get a job one day.
The key to the success of Spectrum Designs is that they're returning customers.
We are producing a garment that is competitive and is absolutely spot-on perfect.
Anyone comes in with an idea on a piece of paper or on whatever, and we'll bring it to life.
And the fact that there's a social mission attached to it, I think just makes it that much more meaningful to people.
My son Nicholas is extremely low functioning, has no speech, has a seizure disorder. I saw this group of little kids growing up. A lot of them are now employees. They were all my son's classmates. And I said, what are we going to do with these kids?
Let's develop a business on our own.
Spectrum was founded in February 2011. The reason we picked apparel, there's reasons that it works. It's structured. You start with a very clear beginning and an end. So you take a blank product, you execute very clear, defined steps on it, and there's a very satisfying completion.
Stella and I had both been in the arena of autism-related causes, and those would be our first people that we could approach that would probably give us a shot.
Did I think we would grow this quickly? No. I knew we were going to grow. I didn't think it was going to be exponentially.
We know that we have to be the best at this. We have to knock it out of the park and say, look, this is the quality we're producing, this is what we give, and by the way, you're helping this great cause.
We have a tremendous commitment to competitive pricing, to customer service.
So customer service is something we pride ourselves on. We have unbeatable price they want.
My first impression, when I first walked into Spectrum, I immediately had a sense of like just joy. It's like a place you want to hang out all day long.
In terms of training for our staff, we've sent our production staff, our screen printers, our embroiderers, all over the country. We offer graphic services. We have a very talented graphic arts team who will make it print ready because best artwork creates the best product.
We are very close to being self-sufficient on sales, all on its own.
But to see my son come in here and to see him get up in the morning and know that he has a schedule, and to see him folding, counting, putting things away, introducing new things, new tasks, and he just rises to the occasion.
I can tell that he has risen to the occasion as someone who is employed.
We're all one big family, and that's really how we look at it. We're one big family, helping one another, all with the same cause, all in the same boat.
It's the most amazing place to be in the world, you know, and I wouldn't want to do anything else. I don't see why we can't create a model that is not only a model for how to run an effective print shop, but how to do it with individuals with developmental disabilities. There's no reason that this can't be in their community, that can't be in another community, that can't be in New Jersey, Connecticut.
With the right people and community support, I think it's very doable.
Okay, so we're going to just jump right in. So what we have here on this panel are three parents, and Patrick is a former teacher. Yeah, and so Patrick taught Nicholas. Nicholas is now age 25. Marjorie, mom to Isabel, age 21. And Jonah has Daniel, age 21, and I have Jack, age 18 and a half. So I'm just going to ask a whole bunch of questions, and we'll go down the line. Maybe start with you, Patrick. Not everyone has to answer every single question, because I want to make a lot of room for people to talk. So my first question is, how do you take the passions and affinities of your young adults with autism spectrum disorder and push them into becoming a marketable skill in the workplace? Maybe Patrick, you can take that.
So I think everyone has this inherent desire to have a place to go and to have a structure and a schedule, as well as a reason to get out of bed in the morning. And that's employment, or at least a place to be productive. And so it's there already. I think you just have to harness it. Specifically relating to what you're saying about marketable skills, obviously a lot of the stuff you saw in the video we're doing is quality control and attention to details. So wrinkles, misplaced thread, things like that without being too general, we found a lot of our employees with autism are very good at spotting. So it becomes something that is actually a marketable skill and something that is a bonus as an employer. So we've taken some of these things and encouraged that and said, look, now you can put your keen eye for detail to task, and it's actually a bonus for you. The other thing that's really interesting is we've had to, in some instances, force some of our employees to take breaks because they're so good that they're just like, I'm here to work my 4-hour, 5-hour shift, and I don't want to take breaks. I don't want to socialize. And we're like, well, New York State labor laws. So yeah. There's a number of bonuses to it, absolutely.
Maybe Marjorie, you want to take that? You want to take that as well?
And about the affinities or
yeah, the passions, yes. And how does that passion become a marketable skill?
Right. Well, we're primarily a training program, and we want all of our trainees to work on all of the different tasks that we have. including, so we resell American Girl dolls, so they have to learn how to sort through donations, they have to learn how to clean the dolls, do the doll hair, sometimes we have to tighten the doll limbs, they need to know how to prepare the outfits, price things, put them out on display, work with customers. So each one of them has a preference for a different area, but each one of those skills brings up different kinds of social issues for them and behavioral issues and emotional regulation issues. So we don't want them to skip those steps. We want to work through whatever their issues are. Now they do, some of them have preferences. So for example, Maki has mentioned she wants a clerical job. She likes data entry. But she can't just focus on just what she likes, because when you get to a job today, it's very hard to be a specialist. Most jobs require people being somewhat of a generalist to do a number of different types of tasks. So we do like them to work on the areas they prefer, but we also need them to work on areas that are greater challenging to them.
You know, I'm actually going to twist the question a little bit in that I don't want to talk about our business, this particular question, but just something that I just saw a couple of weeks ago. So my son, we're going through the process of aging out and transition to adulthood. It's our son's last year in school. And my wife and I just, my son has always liked taking things apart in the house, things that he's not supposed to take apart. And my mother would sometimes bring him all telephones just to take it apart for fun. And we were somewhat amazed to go see another business out in New Jersey called Green Visions, where they have the kids, or young people, excuse me, they're all kids to us, sitting around taking apart old computers and recycling them. They've had a big successful business. And I was just kind of blown away how, and I looked around and saw 15 young people eagerly just taking things apart. So there really are opportunities to, in all kinds of different businesses, to harness a passion and proclivity that you wouldn't think would be a marketable skill.
So how about, can I ask the panel, what motivated you besides your own kid to really take the jump, to take the deep dive and to start an autism entrepreneurship endeavor?
Can we start?
Yeah.
A number of reasons. The first thing is the facts. Is that you look at estimations that between 80 and 90% of individuals with autism who go into adulthood are unemployed, which means if you put it the other way, that only 10 or 20% of these people are getting jobs. So there's a societal problem there already, because to look at it from an economic point of view, that's someone who's a taxpayer potentially or paying back in. So I think that's an important thing. But really more of an emotional reason. What started me was when I was working at summer camp and I would talk to parents. It was a special needs summer camp, and they would be like, this is great, it's been a great 6 weeks, but what happens afterwards? And what happens when I'm no longer here? And I'm not a parent, but I can imagine that that's scary no matter what, if you have a typical child or a disabled child, but I can imagine if you're a disabled child, that's even more terrifying. So speaking to those parents was really what motivated me and the two co-founders who are parents who you saw in the video.
So my daughter was, besides the fact that she had a career ambition and I was concerned about how she'd get there, I started to observe her in some internship programs. And I thought they, were a good start, but I was very concerned that they had some limitations, and I thought that I could, having a business background, really sort of up it a notch or two. So for example, she was being taught, or one of her jobs was to put labels on shopping bags. And I said, well, why are you doing that? And she didn't know. And I said, well, first of all, I think it would be a very interesting math project for you to figure out the cost of a pre-printed bag versus a bag with labels on that. And they could bring it back to school, and that would be a good real-life math problem for her. And the other is I started to talk to her about advertising and implied endorsement. And she had no understanding of that. So I felt if she didn't understand why she was doing something, then it would be really hard to generalize that. So I thought, I really could teach business and understand business processes. Another area was collaboration. In the workplace, we all have to start working together. We can't rely on our boss for everything. And in the world of special ed, most of our children are taught to go to the teaching assistant or the teacher for everything. So I felt I needed to have an environment where we would require that our trainees collaborate with each other as opposed to keep turning to their job coach. So a number of these kind of things that I observed going on in other places, I thought, you know, I'm going to go make this and make it happen and do it. And I just wanted to give a call out to the Irelands because I had just opened up Girl again, and I then went down to a conference they held, and that's where I met Jonah and a number of other businesses that were starting, and it kind of gave me the confidence to keep moving forward. I have to say, if I knew it was as hard as it was going to be, maybe I wouldn't have done it. But don't take that.
I warned you, Marjorie.
You did. But you know what? It's really worthwhile. So if you're thinking about doing it, please go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and well, in our case, there are really two things. The first is, again, we have a real community mission, and we were motivated by the fact that the little bookstore in our town was closing, and it was when the economy was really at its low point, and we're all about community, so that was one piece of it. But in terms of the autism, it was interesting that we were initially thinking about doing some kind of nonprofit type venture, and we're going to get into this a little bit more. But I had come in one of my prior careers, I worked on plan giving and endowments for the UJA Federation system, and I knew that the most effective technique in fundraising, and some of you may be professionals out there, is peer-to-peer solicitation. And it seemed to me that if we really wanted to be advocates and examples of for-profit businesses in terms of hiring people with disabilities, that it would be great for us to operate as a for-profit business and say, look, you know, we're just another one of another for-profit business, and it's been incredibly beneficial to us to have people with autism work for us. Why don't you consider it? So.
I want to take that question too, because when my son was 11, going to his special needs school in New York City with a 12-month IEP, during the summer, he finally realized that he was actually going to school in the summer, right? They get to that age where they're like, you know what? Don't I get to do something else other than just go to school? And I searched and searched and spent a lot of time, like, putting him in different programs. And by the second day, he would drop out. He would say, I don't want to go back. And one day I went to the Central Park Zoo where he was at a program, and I said, can I just be his shadow? I'm an educator, whatever. They said, okay, you can do that. And I saw that they made them like walk up in the heat to like where the monkeys are. And they gave them all these little animals, these little plastic animals, and they were put in pairs. And then the counselor said, okay, now pretend that you're one of those animals and just make up a story and talk to each other. And I just thought, whoa, no. And we like walked right out of there. And so when I went back to school for my graduate degree in educational technology, and I had been working my whole life in art and then technology with really underserved, population. And then one day I turned to my husband and I was like, we have someone right here who is incredibly underserved, our own son, and, disability equals diversity. That's what I feel. And I said, I'm going to stop working on those, programs that I've been working on for my whole life since I'm 20, and I'm going to now start working on, programs for him and his friends. And so sort of like the same thing with Spectrum Designs, what I'm seeing now is, these 11-year-olds who have now come up, who are now like our interns and stuff like that. And over the course of 5 years, they have, there's been incredible growth, through that by learning technology skills. Okay, so let's move on to, well, one thing is about like the non-for-profit and the business, the sustainability, question. So if you could, Jonah's going to take that and he's going to talk about the idea of being a non-for-profit, a 501c3, or an LLC, or in the case of Spectrum Designs, it's actually both.
Social enterprise.
Yeah, it's a social enterprise. And so if you can talk about your business, and also at the same time, if you can talk about your marketing, because the business with the marketing.
Sure. So we again, I had worked as a practicing lawyer, worked for the Federation, went home to be a stay-at-home dad to help run my son's home program for 6 years, and then I went back to business school where I majored in social enterprise, and we studied a lot the different forms of possible ownership, and we concluded that for us, the LLC route was the best way to go for a number of reasons, one of which I just talked about before, but in terms of providing an example, being a for-profit business. It also imposes a certain amount of discipline on us. Again, I worked at not-for-profits. I love not-for-profits, but the idea that the bottom line, if it was negative, was coming straight out of our pockets, and that I love giving reports to my fellow shareholder, my wife, and explaining to her that I thought that would be a good discipline for the business, and also, again, in terms of the community, we tried to showcase ourselves as just another business on Main Street. But if you need fundraising help, then 501c3 is definitely the way to go.
Originally, when I was thinking about this, I was actually still at IBM, and I was thinking, oh, I'll open up a mini version of American Girl, and we'll do it in Pleasantville, and it'll be so cute, and it'll employ people. But when I did the math to figure out how do I get the merchandise, it meant that I'd have to buy used dolls at whatever the market rate was, and then how could I mark them up? And I wasn't going to be able to mark them up enough to cover the rent in Pleasantville. So then, as I said, time went on. I still hadn't started this, and I started to see the need for a training program more so than the employment, because if I wanted to have an impact on a large number of people, that I wanted to envision this as an incubator, so that people would come to our program, they'd leave, and voila, our conventional workforce would, absorb them. 6 months with us and they'll be all done. That's not how it works, actually.
That was exactly what we were trying to do
right.
also.
But so I felt that I could actually impact more people by giving them the training program, and given the economics of this whole used doll business, I had to get donated dolls, because the store had to be in a place where moms of 8-year-old girls wanted to go. I couldn't be in a basement of a church, or I couldn't be in an industrial sector, so I was going to pay market rent. And so I needed to get the donated dolls, so I had to be a 501c3 for that, so I could give people their tax deductions, because some people send us, $15. That's quite an investment that they'd love to get a tax deduction for. And then it also enabled us to apply for grants and do some fundraising. And so at this point, for the business model that we have, the 501c3 was the right model for us.
So when we started in 2011, my co-founders had the very, very smart and foresight to form 2 separate nonprofits, so Spectrum Designs Foundation and what's known as the Nicholas Center, after Stella's son Nicholas. The Nicholas Center is the educational component who works with the school districts or works with New York State to provide the job support at Spectrum Designs. Spectrum Designs is purely an apparel printing business that sells to customers all over the place. And so being that they're separate, it keeps the waters very, very clear that Spectrum receives no money from the state or school districts for providing any job support or any job coaching, which obviously a lot of our employees require, and the Nicholas Center handles that completely. So that's been great for us. I would recommend, if you were going to pursue this, a singular partner agency. If you're going to start the business side of it, you might want to partner with a partner agency to provide the job support if that's required, just because it can be quite messy. So New York State might say, well, if let's say Spectrum was providing the job support as well as selling T-shirts, New York State might say, well, we're giving you money to pay that person for them to work here, and you're making money on T-shirts, and it just gets very, very messy. So we clearly defined it that this is the Nicholas Center. They provide the job support. They work with the contracts with the districts. Spectrum Designs sells T-shirts and employs people with disabilities. And the Nicholas Center allows for the employees with autism to be supported there. But it's a dance. It's a real dance, because as a 501c3, obviously, we can take donations. So a lot of people in the early days, some of them were sitting in this room, and their organizations supported Spectrum. 90% of our equipment was granted to us. So we're not financing it, we're not paying, interest on that. But at the same time, when we sell T-shirts and we make a profit, everything has to go back in. No one gets bonuses, no one is, lining their pockets. Everything is public knowledge. We file a 990, so everything is very clear. And it's worked for us. But that's where Spectrum Designs fits into that social enterprise. It's a business with a social mission that is a 501c3. So I think the wave of this kind of philanthropic capitalism, or that people want to purchase something, and if they can purchase it for a similar price and help something, a social good, like free-range eggs, for example, you know, when they were really expensive and then they came back down to a marketable price, people said, I'll buy free-range eggs, you know, like, so as long as you can be within that price and you have that social good, I think people want to spend their money to help that, and that's been a really nice revelation for us, and I'm sure you guys too.
The social mission,
yeah,
really
mission.
supreme. So let's just take a dive a little bit into everyone's program, and can you talk about, you know, how does a young adult join your program, and also do you have a curriculum, or, you know, how do you do that? And then maybe also, like, how do you incorporate social emotional learning, collaboration, problem solving, and the other soft skills of conversation around the water cooler into your workplace? So that's like a multitude. I asked you for a multitude of questions, but they all sort of have to do with, like, curriculum, social emotional learning. Yeah. Who would like to take it?
Do you want?
I'll start. So when I first started this, I started on my own, and I started in a little space in Hartsdale, 125 square feet, as a proof of concept. And I had already gotten it started, and then I put the word out saying, are there any social workers or psychologists who would like to come and work with me? And I had already started, you know, sort of the structure of how all the different tasks. I had already had some workshops in my home because we had to have merchandise to open the store. So we had some workshops in my home to come up with the methodologies of how we were going to do all the different tasks. And I also felt that every task had to have another type of learning experience with it. It wasn't just to be able to do the task. It was to deal with their social issues, their emotional regulation issues. And so I had all this in my mind. It wasn't completely documented. And then a woman called me and said she'd like to help, and that was Dr. Sherry Barron. And she has been with me since shortly after we opened. And we continued to build up the curriculum and the methodologies of what we teach and how we do that. And most recently, we've been working a lot more on the social skills. And I thought one of the things that I think Jesse alluded to and some other people alluded to about developing the skills is the individual has to have a little bit of self-awareness as to what do they need. We can't just tell them what they need. So Maki, for example, is somebody who is always asking us, is that an example of working together, or is this an example of understanding somebody else's feelings or thinking? She's aware enough about what she doesn't know. Some of our others don't have that sense of awareness, or they don't express it, but we try to take all of those kinds of issues and constantly make examples for them to practice and model with each other. And we now have another social worker with us, Pat Rowan. We have another job coach who's has a son on the spectrum, and another psychologist. And now we just hired Leslie Catan, whose background as a social worker, to be our director of training. So with all of those expertise, we're now really documenting what we've been doing so that we can create a model that we can share with other people. But I would say that we focus an awful lot on social skills. And perhaps that's partly because we have it's all women, and they really have a desire to be competent in this area. They're very aware that these are their weaknesses. So they're very motivated.
Patrick?
Yeah, I think what's been interesting for us is with our partnership is that a lot of it is so built into what we do every day. I mean, our shop just today, when I had to leave to come here, was absolutely chaos, but it's controlled chaos, you know. I mean, there's people running around, and so everything in terms of communication, effective communication, accurate communication, it's kind of built into our process. You have to work as a team. Is this shirt complete? Is it done? Is there shipping? Is the customer picking up? So we try wherever we can to be like, don't ask me, ask Sam. You know, you guys talk to each other. I'm not making, you know, I'm not part of this, you know, I'm in the office. But, you know, so that's kind of a big part of it. And then another thing we do is we take efficiency data. So because we can measure the efficiency of someone who can count 12 T-shirts or count or hang tag or neck tag or box or take off or load. We can assess that, and then we can measure it and bring it up or down based on the needs of the individual. There's tons of adaptations we make throughout the shop: arrows, numbering, tying machines in with animals or pictures, so that if someone can't read, that says screen print machine, you can tie it to a picture of something else, say like, I don't know, monkey, and it's like screen print machine monkey. So if someone can't read, or if they have an issue connecting with that, you can be like, go to the screen print machine, and if they don't go there, you can be like, where's the picture of the monkey? And then you compare the two. And so that's kind of, there's all those things that we do. But obviously, as an employer, it's that balance between, it's still a print shop. So it's not a classroom, but it is, but it isn't. So there's that kind of constant, it's a place of work, and our people are getting paid and everything like that. But also, of course, it's not there are adaptations, and I think it's important to try and draw that line. But of course, it gets muddied wherever things kind of go left or right.
Is there a social worker in your program?
So the Nicholas Center has a BCBA on site. They have trained job coaches, and it's a little more complicated because the job coaches this is the reason we have a singular agency model, is because they have to understand how the machines work too. Not to the extent that my production staff do, but it's not safe for them to be trying to teach someone something like a heat press if they don't know how to control it. So that's why we went with the singular agency, because if it was a lot of staff turnover or a different group coming in, we would have to constantly be retraining for safety reasons, and it just wouldn't have been manageable. So that's another reason I recommend it. But yeah, there's a lot of highly educated people, more highly educated than myself, who, although in my thing I have a master's in special education, but I run the business, but so it doesn't, people say, well, that was a waste, but actually it's not, because I can look at the tasks and say, well, let's do a TA on that, and I can use the language that our educators understand, and it's worked quite well, but I never thought I'd be selling T-shirts. So.
And they're great T-shirts, because we get them for Yes, She Can. So
and bags, and bags too.
Yes,
yeah.
thank you.
So I just wanted to add briefly, our main focus, we've had 80 to 90 young people work in our store, and we have a whole lot of so-called neurotypical employees, and we integrate people in. Zach, who you saw in the video, I mean, that was an MSNBC piece, and they wanted somebody who was verbal. I'd say Zach is one of the highest functioning people we've ever had. We, again, work at the lower range. And what I have found, and this may be a little unconventional, but we're really much more interested in these so-called hard skills than we are in the soft skills. Our typical employees will accept virtually any kind of behaviors from people if they can get the job done. And so for us, the most important thing is teaching skills and then having people who can do it. If they can put the labels on the bags, if they can break down the boxes that we need for recycling, if they can label and shelve our books, our staff is thrilled, our customers are thrilled, and everyone is pretty happy. We try to incidentally incorporate some social skills, but we view that as less important. I was kind of interested in some efficiency data. That sounds great, and that's something.
So it sounds like, just to be clear, that Jonah, your young adults are working, it's more of a inclusion type of model, right? You're working with other people in the bookstore who are your regular employees.
Yes, it's both. I mean, it's both in the sense that sometimes they're off doing a task by themselves or in a group, but the idea is, and what I'm saying, and we've had many of the people who come to us through local schools, in answer to your other questions, and my son, and we've focused a lot on 18 to 21-year-olds, but some of the older adults we've had are just regular employees, and what I've seen from our typical employees, that these people can do their jobs, they're respected, and they're fine almost no matter what they do. But if they are not doing their tasks, and that goes for my typical employees as well, that's what the problem is.
And so related to that, Marjorie, everyone in the shop is on the spectrum.
We have a number
other than
of
the people
mentors.
who are training.
And we have peer mentors too. So, and they're volunteers.
Right.
But the people who are actually focused on training are on the spectrum or have other types of developmental disabilities. One of the things that we do like to have is people who have perhaps better social skills. For example, you saw Kelsey at the end. She has very good social skills. She has very severe ADHD. But she is a good component to the program because she's peers. You know, some of these girls go to Purchase College. They know each other. They come and work with us, and she provides a lot of social interaction with some of the others who are less capable of being social. So I answer your question.
And Patrick, yours is?
It's inclusion. So we have 30 employees, and 18 of them are people with developmental disabilities. So it's 70%-ish. And that's, you know, full and part-time. Some people doing 15 hours, some people doing 40 hours, you know. So, yeah, it's totally inclusive.
And how do you get a job at Spectrum Designs, at Yes She Can, at Words Bookstore?
I mean, that's a broad question. I mean, how does anyone, I mean...
Right, how do you get, do you get a resume, do you have an interview, how do you get the job?
So, the way, we have obviously traditional ways, you know, Craigslist, Monster.com, send in a resume, and then the other thing that we do in partnership with our partner agency, the Nicholas Center, is we have trainees. So we allot a portion of our shop to people, or just the shop floor, it's only 1,500 square feet and everyone's working together, but we have another 27 school-aged, 16 to 21, who are coming in now, who are in the trainee program. And so far, I think our employment rate from them coming to post-21 is 95%. So we bring them through on this learner journey into traditional employment. And I think that was why we started it, because Stella's son, Nicholas, was working at Petco, or he was in school, you know, volunteering there, and they had no intention of anything after 21. Another one of our employees, Gregory, was working at CVS. They gave him a uniform. They said, you know, you're a great employee. When he turned 21, they were just like, we can't hire him. He's not flexible enough. He can't work the register. He's great at this one area. Right. His job coach can't be here. His parents don't pay him. So you don't need to pay him. Well, we can't do that. We have labor laws. We have, you know. So we were kind of like similar to what Jonah was saying about, you know, catering to those who may struggle to find employment in other areas and offering it there. And you know, the more lower functioning, Stella's son Nicholas is nonverbal, has a seizure disorder, but we could see that he clearly had skills and something to offer when put in the right situation. And so it was taking the traditional mold of the outside employment and just shaping it more to the needs of our individuals. And it's still employment, you know.
And Marjorie, how do you get a job at Yes She Can?
Well, we're a training program, so no. So I was going to say no one gets hired. We did hire one of our trainees. She was very competent enough that she sort of delivered more productivity than we were giving support to her. So she comes one day a week as a paid, and then she was one of our success people. She got a job where she really wanted, which was a public library in her community. So she works there 3 days a week. And then one day a week she does some volunteer work. But to apply for our training program, I have some flyers out in the on a table out in the front, and we have an intake process. We have it's sort of a 16-week period of time, and ideally people will come 2 or 3 times a week. But some of these college young women, it takes them so much work to make it through their college classes that they don't have enough time to devote to developing their job skills, and so they come once a week. My advice to say, take 3 classes and come and get built and use one of that period of time and consider that the equivalent of a class and come and get some work skills, because some of them, you know, sophomores and juniors, it's going to take them a long time to build up these kinds of skills. You know, and we know that getting a college degree is not the answer to getting a job. So we've also had we currently have participants who didn't go to college. They completed high school and are home most of the time, and we're their only activity and involvement. And some of them are eligible for Access VR. Oh, I say only. They're not eligible for OPWDD, so they're reliant on Access VR and the agencies to help them find jobs. And that's really hard, too, to get the agencies to help them find jobs. So I would say that if anybody's interested in applying, I should also just give a little plug. We're also looking for job coaches. So we have a little flyer out there if you're in the Westchester area and would like to do some job coaching.
So can I skip along, just because I want to move it along, to talking about how do you manage parent relationships? Because, you know, as parents, it's hard for us to let go. And so, like, maybe you can take that, Jonah, for the young adults that are working with you. I mean, how do you manage? Are you only communicating with those young adults? Are you communicating with the parent? Like, what's going on there in terms of that?
Yeah, that's really not been, I'd say honestly, a problem, a big problem for us. I sort of thought it would be a big problem, but because we get most of our people coming through a training program, come in through school, and the adults who work as employees, even though we're first and foremost a bookstore and we're profitable, for-profit store, I always like to joke around that we're really an agency of the affiliate, you know, almost an agency of the Federation. I know our friends from Metro West are watching on TV, I hope, and they do a great job of sending us people from things like the Friendship Circle and Jewish Vocational Services and JSDD and all the other agencies, and so that we haven't had that much dealing directly with parents. I mean, sometimes I get inquiries for parents. Usually it's just that they want their young person to come in and have an interview with us, which we do and go through the process, but it hasn't been a
And
problem.
Marjorie, are parents breaking down your walls?
It's very interesting that we'd like to communicate directly with the trainees. They don't use email. That's a problem. You know, we're not going to text. They want to text us, but we do sometimes copy the parents. I don't think anybody we have is under guardianship, so, you know, by right we should be communicating directly with our trainees. We do, sometimes the parents like to talk to the clinical professionals, and so I think that that's useful. So if a parent wants to talk to Sherry or Pat, just to get a little more insight. We also are sort of more formalizing a form that we have to give more written feedback at the end of their session. But I wouldn't say parent involvement is a problem at all.
And Patrick, can you tell us, like, if there are specific organizations or conferences or social networks that you have found to be instrumental, you know, as you have developed the concept of spectrum designs and the execution of spectrum designs?
Yeah, I mean, it's twofold. So the first would be if you're going to focus on a trade like apparel production, you have to obviously go to those trade shows and learn about how to do that. We've gone to Atlantic City, we've gone to Chicago, we've gone to Florida to learn about apparel production and how to do it safely. Staten Island as well, in the early on days. But things, you know, a lot of things like today, these kinds of things where you meet like-minded people who want to support it and have other ideas of how you can be successful. Facebook, in terms of social media, social platforms, has been tremendously, you know, helpful to us. Again, for suggestions, for feedback, for ways to improve. And so, yeah, I think as much as possible, you just want to continually learn, because not only is the business you're in, if it's specifically a bookstore or American Girl dolls or T-shirts, that's constantly changing, but also so is the world of, you know, developmental disabilities, and there's new technology and new knowledge. So I would just say, I would just constantly try and get yourself out there and learn and grow and peer review and learning from people in the same field.
I do want to say there is a Facebook group that was started by Flutie Spectrum Enterprises. It's literally called Autism Enterprises. Excuse me, Autism Entrepreneurship. Anyone can join if you just search for it under your Facebook, and it's really quite wonderful. And Jonah's going to take that question as well.
Yeah, I wanted to say, first and foremost, I wanted to thank the Hillebrands and the Federation, because I've been coming to this conference for years, and it really is an invaluable resource for us, and it's been incredibly helpful. And then also, and Marjorie's already made reference to Extraordinary Ventures and our friends the Irelands. I think Lori's here. Lori's in the back. And they're really just the leaders in the field. As far as I'm concerned, they do an incredible job, and they've run just amazing, incredibly helpful conferences. And then also the Rudermans, the Rubin Foundation has also been great support, and they've also had great conferences.
Anything that you want to add, Marjorie? To any like specific conferences or anything that you go to?
Well, as I said, the Ireland's had that conference a couple of years ago. The AHA conference that Pat runs, I've been coming to this for 10 years. This is one of my all-time favorite conferences. I meet so many amazing people here. And I have a network of people. And when I got started, I spoke to lots of different people. And long before LinkedIn existed, I was a natural networker. So people would pass me on to somebody else. Debbie Hillebrand is an amazing networker. She shares a lot of her contacts with me and suggestions on who I should talk to. And I've just been able to tap the expertise and experience of so many different people that, I rely on that.
Okay, here's my last question, and then I'm going to open it up to your questions. So tell us your advice and your regrets about, becoming an autism entrepreneur. Your advice and regrets. Jonah's going to start.
My advice, and this is what I spoke to Marjorie about, is that it's really helpful to have a business background and an understanding, and especially if you're for-profit, but probably either way, of just how difficult it is to run your own small business. My hat's off to the panelists here who've been able to do it. I spend most of my time trying to run a profitable bookstore. And I don't think it's just because I happen to be in the book industry and that's challenging. Most industries are challenging. There's going to be we're supposed to be on CBS this morning, tomorrow, talking about the environment in retail and hiring retail, and running a small business is extremely challenging. I find that to be actually much, much harder than the autism aspect. I find training people with autism job skills is a piece of cake compared to the challenges of running a for-profitable or even a brick-for-even kind of business. So I would just warn people not to think that, I would encourage people to do it, but I would warn people to understand that it requires a fair amount of cash, it requires a fair amount of expertise, and a lot of hard work just to run a break-even business.
Advice and regrets.
Right. Well, I started the organization, Yes She Can, with a vision of having a portfolio of different kinds of businesses based on different people's affinities. So my daughter was American Girl, but not everybody loves American Girl. I thought of other kinds of businesses that I know people on the spectrum, products and categories that they really loved. But I felt like I had to create a proof of concept. Standard, IBM practice, you come up with an idea, you got to prove it works. So that's why I started on my own with this 125 square foot space. But what I am sorry I didn't have was somebody to then turn to and say, okay, I proved it, now give me, the $1 million to fund it. And so that's really the, I guess, mistake or regret that I didn't have a backer so that I could grow it as quickly as I'd like to and fill in all those kinds of things that I'd like to do. So we're going slower than I'd like, but I would say that would be my advice and my regret is to find somebody who will really fund it and sponsor it so that your vision can actually, become reality.
I think my advice in terms of entrepreneurship or social entrepreneurship is to operate that way. It's wonderful to have this social mission, but if you wave the charity flag as a non-profit early on, people just don't take you seriously. So I think you're not a charity worthy of the crumbs from someone's table. You're a legitimate business that can give them what they need in the time they need at the price they need, and then people will take you seriously. And then if you can tie in that, and by the way, you're supporting autism employment, then it becomes a, well, why wouldn't I? And so that's the biggest advice that I could give. And I learned that, luckily I learned that early on enough. One thing I didn't learn early enough in terms of regret is that, I don't know if it's an American saying, but that if you don't ask, the answer's always no. And so I learned that after being in New York for a few years, and so I didn't ask. I was too shy in the beginning, and I just kind of, and you have to remind yourself, it's not a problem asking someone if they'll order from you because It's going to help people with disabilities. So, you know, that I had to kind of coach myself through that. But if you don't ask, the answer's always no. So that stuck with me, and now I ask. But I didn't always.
So why don't we turn it over now to questions from the audience? I mean, I think, you know, I have tons of other questions, but I feel like I would love to be able to open this up. So I would love it if people can just like head to the microphones, and anyone wanted to ask a question, you would please ask.
Yes, hi. I have a question for you. My question is, with the changing, so one of you guys mentioned the changing sort of scape of retail. I've read a number of different articles about this. And then more broadly, I've read a number of different articles speaking of automation and how that's going to make many jobs obsolete. And particularly the types of jobs, you know, I mean, I don't mean to like devalue the types of jobs that people on the spectrum do, but in a lot of cases, they seem like the types of jobs that automation would be well suited to take over. So I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that's a very serious concern. Again, we are a regular bookstore. You're all free to order from us at wordsbookstore.com, particularly if you have large organizational orders and things like that. A lot of people flock to the convenience of some online ordering, and it's really, I consider that an incredibly serious threat to our community, by which I mean, well, the two communities, the autism community and our little local downtown community. I'm not particularly worried about it in terms of our bookstore, because we do offer our sales force, which is employed pretty much by typical people, can provide services and expertise that you can't find online, and they're valued by the people in our community. So we're able to keep going, and then we have in a back room an ability to employ other types of people. And it's true, I guess, that if we, and this is where we are also a social enterprise, that if we were interested in wringing every single dollar out of it, it's possible that we could eliminate those kind of jobs. But I think that all of us, when we shop for anything online, really ought to be giving serious pause and thinking about what the impact is in our community. My son, not just, again, as an entrepreneur, but or as a place for my son to work, but my son goes downtown and can visit all the little stores and shops downtown, and if they all go out of business, which I'm not going out of business, but I'm worried about some of the other little stores in town, there's not going to be any place for him or any of the other kids in town to shop at.
I think, I just want to take that question. I think that like automation is, you know, we definitely have automated our lives and stuff, and certainly jobs and downsizing and outsourcing, you know, a tremendous amount. I see it a little bit differently. I actually have tons of students globally where I teach at NYU who actually come to this program at NYU to, you know, they're programmers, they're developers, and they what they want to learn, how to be like filmmakers and how to be game designers and how to be user experience designers. And, you know, some of my students say to me, like, I don't want to be a code monkey. Like, those are my graduate students that say that to me. I don't want to be a code monkey, which means someone who is looking at lines of code, you know, on their screen to program websites, back end or front end, all day long. And guess what? It seems like so many of our students at Tech Kids Unlimited, they want to be the code monkey. Right. They want to be it, and they're interested in it, and they do it really well. So it's sort of like an interesting paradigm of sort of what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, that's great, but I mean, doesn't that seem like something that, you know, Code Monkey, that can be automated too, potentially?
There will always be mistakes in lines of codes. That's why there's places like Specially Stern are making, are helping major companies like SAP and Hewlett Packard, develop programs, because that's exactly what is happening, is that we need beta testers, you know, to debug code. Otherwise, your website's not going to look so good, and your app is going to be broken and stuff like that. So the human element, I believe, is still important.
I wanted to say something about this also. Our store, people can buy used American Girls dolls online at good
eBay.
prices, eBay.
Right.
But we want to create an experience, and you can't automate an experience, which is why Starbucks is so popular, right? You can get a cup of coffee for 50 cents somewhere else. You're willing to pay $4.50 to pay the overhead of the store so that you can sit there all day. What we wanted to do is create an experience, so when people walk into our store, our customers, they go, wow, and these 8-year-old girls say, I could live here. So you can't automate that in terms of an environment, a retail environment. But if the store didn't function, then we wouldn't have any tasks for our trainees to work on. So we're dependent on our customers. So a lot of our work is bringing customers, bringing in used merchandise, and so it's kind of this ecosystem that's working. And what they like is that we've refurbished the dolls to the point that they're as near new as possible, and they've displayed them in a way that is very engaging, and the kids love to come in there. So in our little world, automation couldn't take it over. But again, this isn't meant to be a mass business. We can't roll out used American Girl stores across the country. We're really meant to be a training environment, and then we'd like to take the model, though, that we've created and then be able to have other places replicate it in their local environments.
And we're also selling what we consider the bookstore experience. We have 100 speakers.
And I said, we're not in the doll business. Job skills business, and to get these used dolls as a nonprofit, it takes a lot of work. It's constant marketing on my part. So I said, what I am working on.
Talking to, I was actually at Facebook.
Should have our logo on them. We should hang tag, because that's another thing that not only can our employees can do, but it tells the story on the back. Otherwise, it's just another T-shirt. We know that parents and everyone get T-shirts all the time. Another thing we do with the customer permission is on the inside of the label, a sort of our stamp of, that it was a Spectrum product, is we have our logo on the inside. Another job that is marketing, but also is something that we can train our employees to do. So we do that. Because we can, obviously our business is printing, so we'll go to other races, other walks, not necessarily in the autism community, outside. We just did a large order for the Helen Keller group, and we say, well, you know what, we'll donate all the setup fees, and that's our marketing budget there to set up, put our logo on the back, we'll get the shirt order, and so we try and do those things all the time. But yeah, marketing, social media, getting your name out there however you can. The biggest thing has been word of mouth, like you just said with Karen and Nagler, is people going out and saying, wait a minute, before you order for your bar or bat mitzvah, see if you can give this company a try. That's been the most heartening thing we've had, is people saying, I did this on custom ink, but here you go, can you do it? And I didn't order it yet, but
because
can you do it?
Printing is a big business. I mean, there's so many different places you can go to online, and so you're saying word of mouth marketing is key to you, but then do you take out advertisements, or you...
Not as much. It's funny. It's changed. People care less now about what LeBron James thinks about a product than what the person who reviewed it on Yelp thinks about the product, or what they said on, So actually, peer-to-peer review is stronger now. We don't do mailing campaigns anymore because there's no way of knowing where that, people tend to just throw that away. We send out e-blasts, but not that often because people get annoyed and then they just unsubscribe. So yeah, I mean, we try and use word of mouth. We really do as much as possible, social media.
I like to call it mommy marketing.
Mommy marketing, I like that. Mummy marketing is
mommy marketing.
We do a lot of social media. So we sort of have like two sides of this. We have, just get customers into Girl Again store, and we use a lot of the, moms of Westchester, moms of White Plains, moms of Armonk, and we post there, and they love it. And when I ask people how they come to find out about our store, that's the #1 reason they find out. In terms of donated merchandise, we searched Optimize My website so that anytime anybody types in Donate American Girl Dolls, our site comes up to the top, which means to keep your site sort of with good Google juice, you have to constantly refresh the website. So I'm looking for bloggers, I'm looking for more content on our site to constantly keep that up to date. But when you mentioned advertising, I know Facebook has and Google have
we've used
nonprofits,
those before.
and I'd have to talk to you about it because we have not pursued that, and I know that they do donate some AdWords.
Hasn't been very effective.
Oh, it has.
Yeah.
Did you get the grant? You got the grant?
No, anyone you can get the AdWords. Yeah.
Free AdWords on Google if you're a nonprofit.
Yes or no? My marketer's over there. You're saying yes?
Yeah, we like it too.
All right. Well, I'll have to talk to
Someone
you
has
how
to
do that.
manage it though.
Right.
Someone has to
Yeah.
really, you know.
But that is, you know, we
I don't
keep
know about
talking
it.
about getting our trainees to do social media.
Right.
And we've asked them to write blog posts, and we've asked them to, they like Instagram better than Facebook. It seems like the old folks are on Facebook. The moms are on Facebook, the kids are on Instagram or other things. So we're trying to get them to utilize social media because here's a skill that is actually good for a marketing.
Right. Jonah, can you tell us, how has your child, your own son Daniel, changed from your autism entrepreneur endeavor?
Oh, actually, not that much. Honestly, he what I like to say is, and I knew this when we went into the bookstore business, that my wife and I were both trained as lawyers. We have a neurotypical daughter who's older, and we said we weren't going to make her grow up to be a lawyer, and we weren't going to make our son Daniel grow up to work in a bookstore. So we've always viewed this just as an option for him. And he's come in and he's worked as, you know, it's one of the 4 or 5 jobs that he's had through school, and he's probably going to now take a bigger role. But we actually think, even though he's not a big talker, that he kind of views this as sort of the family business in not always such positive ways, meaning, you know, he thinks he can
he say, like,
get away with things
can he,
more
like,
than he can in
but
other
can he be
places. I think
like,
he's
just
more
walk
serious.
through the store and get free books, or, you know,
Yeah,
or
that
like
kind
stuff
of
like
thing.
that?
Yeah, you know, walking around, but I'm just saying that
Yeah.
I'm not sure that he's at his best necessarily in our environment. But, you know, he's 21. We've got a long way to go. And
Right.
he may have a career there.
Right.
yet.
Recently, my son asked us, we were doing some new business cards, and he was like, "It's really not fair, Mom, that I don't have a business card." And I'm thinking, like, wait a second, like, you're, you know, he calls himself the co-founder. My husband calls him the flounder, right? But we made him a little pack of cards. What he's doing with it, I really don't know. But he does think that he is marketing to his friends, which he really, really is. So it's kind of funny that way.
Great idea to give them.
Yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to just go there, and then we'll do that question there. Yeah. How has it changed, Isabel?
Okay, so it's been a little difficult because being Isabel's job coach, I'm her mom, and she doesn't like to take critical feedback from her mother. And she also thinks she kind of has a little bit of free reign. And she can do things the way she likes. And this has been a challenge. So fortunately, we just got a volunteer job coach to come in on Wednesday. She's there right now with Izzy. And the relationship is really very different. There's a much more professional approach, which is great. It's a little challenge when she thinks she sees something she really likes there, and she says, "I'm going to put that aside for me." I said, well, you know, none of the other trainees kind of get, you know, a little corner to stash the things that they want. So you know, I've gone back and forth. Should I make her work 2 hours or do something hard and then she can get this pair of doll shoes? It's actually been a challenge. On the other hand, I've noticed some skills that she's really good at. One of the best things she's good at is what we call cross-sell or upsell. So a customer walks into the store. She loves this merchandise so much that she's not going to let somebody go. She buy the doll. Well, you have to get the outfit to go with the doll. And you have to get this. And, you know, that is a really important skill for a business. And so, you know, as soon as a customer comes in, I try to get her to attend to the customer. One of the things that they all have a problem with is they may be doing a task, and I say, oh, you know, go help that customer. Not now, I'm busy. The customer comes first. They have a hard time with that, so Izzy does say that, but then she, give me 15 minutes. And so eventually she will go over there and then she will perform. So I would say my lesson is that I probably right from the start should have gotten somebody else to coach her. So that's my advice.
And Patrick, how's Nicholas?
So when I first met Nicholas 10 years ago, I was 18 and he was 13 at summer camp, and I knew nothing about autism, like absolutely nothing. I read that book that the play was on Broadway, The Dog.
The Curious Incident of the Dog.
That was all I knew, right? That was it. And I met him, and he's nonverbal, and I was like, oh, I'll be able to make him talk. I was like convinced I could just, you know, cure autism, you know, and so I learned that wasn't necessarily as possible, but it has changed his life. You know, he's got a play. He's 25 now, so you know he's long past school, and even in his last few months and years of school at 21, I think he was done. And he was coming, you know, part of his job training program, and then he transitioned into employment. And now besides his work in the print shop, he also does our deliveries with his job coach. So he's gone to parts of Brooklyn, he's gone over the Westchester Bridge, he's gone to Philadelphia. We had to send them for a rush order of shirts. So, I mean, he goes and handles the deliveries with his job coach, and it's just, he loves it because, you know, he can plot the route and things like that with the map. And so it's just like, it's a dream. So to see him from 13 to 25 now has been, it really has been a dream.
So we have some questions. Yes. Could you go to the mic, please? Thanks so much.
I was wondering if your businesses had, because they're young businesses by and large, if you have the opportunity to track any of the people as they go onward into adulthood in terms of their ability to get and be retained on jobs, and kind of the percentage of that.
We had some of the people, or a lot of people with autism also have other challenges, you know, mental health issues, depression. So we had somebody who was very competent. She was with us for a year and a half, and then only wanted to work with reptiles. But interesting enough, I said, well, maybe you can work with different animals. And I actually brought her up to meet Temple Grandin up at Stone Barns, and we got her a tour of Stone Barns. I thought, well, maybe she can work with these animals. Nope, nope, nope. That was it, just reptiles. And she couldn't find a job, and you know, she kind of gave up and went into a severe depression. So that's kind of the sad side. On the happy side, I mentioned that Christina, who did very well with us, you know, when she first came to work with us, I remember I used to drive her, and I would say, Christine, I have a meeting first, so you take a taxi and I'll meet you there. A woman alone taking a taxi? You know, she was horrified by that notion, and now she can take a bus, she can take an Uber, and she's doing well at her job at the, so that's the plus side. And then we have a couple of people in the middle that have gone on to Access VR. They found some jobs. One of them came across as very verbal, and I guess they assumed she understood what the responsibilities were, but she didn't, and they ended up saying, well, you're not meeting standards, and we're going to reduce your hours. So we've seen a range, and so, you know, there's a reason why 80% of adults are, but we are working at that. So we don't have a long history, but I'm hoping it'll be more like a Christina than like a Monica.
I don't have a long history either, but I do have one really nice story. In that, in his senior year of high school, we had a student who took our classes, and his father was a computer science person, and so he started taking our classes, and we saw immediately like he was super great and very helpful to the other students. So then he entered Pace University's OASIS program, where he's studying computer science, and now he's like one of our regular assistant teachers. Wow. And we love him, and the kids love him, and so, you know, we employ him now, and he comes to our teacher trainings, and, you know, where we talk about autism and show films, and, you know, have, you know, lectures from occupational therapists, et cetera, and he sits there and he takes it all in. And it's kind of really nice. We sort of honored him a couple years ago, and he doesn't really like to talk a lot, especially not in front of a large audience, and what he did say to us was that he felt like technology has leveled the playing field for him, and that certainly, you know, to be at a program where there were kids who learn differently, and to be a student who learns differently, and then to work with those students as a teacher was an incredible, like, positive thing for him. So we want to employ all of our little guys, and then they come back and give back to, you know, their peers. Anyone else want to take that question? Oh, yes. Question. Thank you.
With the exception of Patrick, you're all parents of autistic children, and you've started your own business, if not to employ your children directly, certainly their peers and such. But the statistics aren't enough. I mean, this kind of social entrepreneurism has to go more mainstream to really have an impact on the community. Do you have thoughts about how you take what you're doing now to a higher step?
I want to turn that back to you. Do you have any thoughts about how we can do it? Because that's one of the goals. I'm saying that was absolutely one of my main objectives getting in, and I guess in terms of I didn't really give regrets, but one of the things that I'd like to do, I do go around speaking quite a bit, and I speak to audiences of parents or people who work with people with autism, but I think we really need to be in front of groups of employers and potential employers, and that's something I'd love to. I'm hoping now that my business is in the black and making money that I can go off and do something like that, if you have any ideas.
To sort of answer your question, you know,
And I think it's a great question. And I will say that 3 weeks ago, we had a panel and Marjorie was on it, and the purpose was to get the audience to listen, to say that you can do it. And obviously, I think I actually came up with the idea after you, Debbie. But, I mean, that's the purpose. And if it's not one person out there like a Marjorie or Jonah, or is it 3 of you guys, or Beth, so it could be 2 people doing it together. But it's coming, it's all over the country now. It was maybe in a little pocket in one place, and now another pocket, and maybe it's a corporation doing it here and there. But that's the way it's going to happen.
Right.
Well, again, I mean, Randy, I remember Randy Lewis speaking here at
right.
one of the earlier conferences, and he was just very inspiring with
I mean,
Walgreens.
there is, I mean, this whole idea of what is a micro revolution, you know, like we can't sit around and complain, right? We can't sit around and complain that our kids are not going to have any jobs and not have any opportunities and expect other people to do, you know, other things for us or the government or whatever. I mean, if, you know, we live in a world of, you know, activism, of you know, social justice, and I really feel, for me as an autism entrepreneur, is that, you know, I'm fighting for my son, but I'm also fighting for all of his friends and his peers. So, you know, it's a micro revolt, a micro revolution, and I really believe that everyone in this room has amazing ideas, you know, and that you can all start some type of business entrepreneurial thing. Yeah, it's hard. It's really, really hard. But, you know, I think that what we're saying collectively is that it has to be done. Like, we have to do it because no one else is going to do it. And now let's hear from Lori.
Hi, I'm Lori Ireland, and I just wanted to say what a hugely exciting thing for us and sort of addressing this topic is the table outside that says EV New York. I mean, this was something that happened because we all worked together. All of us, all of you up there, us at Extraordinary Ventures, et cetera, sharing ideas and really, really giving people hope. I think at our conference several years ago, the most wonderful thing was how hopeful everybody was. And I think lots of new little businesses have sprung up since then, all across the United States. I see them a lot. It's getting together, talking about it, and then actually going out and doing something. And it doesn't have to belong to any one organization. Right. This is small businesses. We only call it EV New York. We just have a letter of understanding. That's it. No money, nothing like that, because it takes a real local commitment to the project and funding in the beginning. So I think everybody can do it. In the immortal words of Nike, just do it.
Exactly. Right. Thank you, Lori. I do want to also say that just a teeny little plug, like plugging Ableist and plugging Extraordinary Ventures. You saw me here today just trying to get you to shop, you know, shop local, shop, you know, related to, you know, the Spectrum, is that on Friday, Flutie Spectrum Enterprises and is unveiling a website that Tech Kids Unlimited teens worked on. It's called shopthespectrum.org, and it features nationwide all of those little, you know, all of our little businesses, you know.
How do we get on it?
And how you get on it is you basically on Friday when it launches. We're making some little edits on it right now. There's a vendor form. There's a form there, and you literally just fill it out. You send some pictures in, and your business will be featured.
Fabulous.
And Patrick, you're already on there. He's one of the businesses that is on there. This was really something that Flutie Spectrum Enterprises, Brittany Collins, who works very closely and studied the Extraordinary Ventures model with Greg and Lori Ireland, came together, and then the teens at Tech Kids Unlimited created the website.
So I just wanted to answer that question also. A lot of times people, you know, because we specialize with women, and a lot of people will come up to you, well, what are you doing for boys? And I go, what do you mean, what am I doing for boys? What are you doing for boys? So I think that we've made the point is that part of, I think, all of our mission is to motivate everybody else. You know, 90% of American businesses are small businesses. So we can't just expect the large corporations to absorb our trainees. In fact, most likely smaller businesses are more willing to accept employment and employ our people because there's a little more flexibility in the way jobs can be defined. But I would say that one of our missions is to encourage other people to just jump in. But I also think that if there could be some type of funding source, that really would make a difference. I'm not compensated yet, and most of all my job coaches are doing it volunteer right now. So I would say that, you know, some type of, you know, it would be nice to have a bank for entrepreneurial, for autism entrepreneurship. If somebody created that bank and funded us, that would really help, I think.
I just want to add that I feel like a day doesn't go by without someone saying, I just heard you guys do good stuff and I would like to order from you. They have no connection to the autism community. They just heard about it and they want to support it. So you might think, oh, it's just us in this room, but there are a lot of people out there who have no connection whatsoever. They just know what autism is, or they know what developmental disability is, and they want to see you succeed. America loves the underdog, so I think that has been a big help for us, and I hope for you guys too. And then also that, you just continue to have a commitment to quality, because nothing gets me more upset when, if I learn that a product we put out wasn't the top level of quality, I tell all our production staff, disabled, non-disabled, typical, non-typical, this is a reflection on all of us as a team, and you have to understand that, like, a lot of people might look at this and go, oh yeah, I thought so, I knew, that was how it would be, I tried to help a charity. So we almost have to go above and beyond the quality level and overcome that initial hurdle of, is it going to be crooked? Is it going to get there on time? And it's really important that my bat mitzvah's on Saturday, and I can't have them on Monday. So that's like crucial. And so we want people to know that people with developmental disabilities are a capable, talented workforce, and I think that message is really, really important to get out there too.
Yeah, people don't come to our store because we have women with autism working there. They come to the store because they want the product. Yeah. Then they find out what our mission is, and they say, oh, more reason to come back. Yep. But I would say the same thing, as we have to deliver a quality product to be able to charge the prices we do.
Jesse, yes, please.
I'm just going to be a little bit blunt here, but not inappropriately. For Marjorie, for those who criticize you for not doing anything for boys, my suggested response is to tell them to just get a life, because women are very underrepresented. They're not represented appropriately because the autism is often very mild. And as a result, they receive less attention. And on another note, they're very common victims of sexual assault and rape. And a question I have for all of you is, I talked about some of the pitfalls that my peers experience, and also in the documentary How to Dance in Ohio, a female employee refused to answer the phone when her employer asked. She says, no, I don't answer the phone. I'm not comfortable doing that. And she had to learn that when your employer is asking, they're really saying, answer the phone. And so I'm curious, what are some of the common scenarios that you encounter in which you have to correct somebody with autism in a very kind fashion, of course, but let them know it's not personal, whether it's inappropriate dating pursuits or them thinking that it's like school where they can have a number of bad days in a row and it's not going to be a big deal?
I can answer that very quickly. In our program at Tech Kids Unlimited, we always have the students sort of critique each other, and they show each other their work at the end of the session. So very often, some students they'll raise their hand and they'll say, "I hate that. It was awful. I don't like the way the characters move." And so what we're really trying to teach them is to say one thing that they like about the digital project and one thing that is a suggestion for improvement. And then we sort of like write on the board really, really big, you know, and then improve, because the tendency sometimes is to just critique and be like, I didn't like this, I didn't like the figures, I didn't like the way they moved, I didn't like the colors of your game, or anything like that. And that really makes people, you know, the kid feel bad. So if you say, you know, okay, you didn't like the colors, and then they want to go on and on, and then the social worker in our program will stop and say, okay, but what did you like, or what needs improvement? And then they'll say, but I liked the ball bouncing up and down in the game. And so we're trying to work on constructive criticism.
It's a great question. It really is a challenge of trying to be a fair and balanced employee, and that dance between understanding and being adaptive to your workforce, but also treating them with the respect and dignity of every other employee. You know, so we've come up against hygiene issues that we've had to address, which is never a topic anyone wants to talk about. We have an employee handbook, we actually have two sets. We have a set that is, you know, the basic employee handbook, and then we have one that's a little more tailored to employees with autism, and it goes through all those requirements to employment in a way that our team at the Nicholas Center, the educators, the experts, have broken down so that it's more digestible, and then we go through it with them. We have a whole process of, if there is, you know, like you said, several bad days in a row, we will meet with our employees and sit down with them and say, what's going on? Is there something going on at home? And believe it or not, there's been instances where the clock's changing has made, you know, so we just know that every October we're going to lose Zach for a couple of days because he's messed up with the clocks, you know, and you just have to accept that and understand that. And that's what I think is really important is that, yes, we're a traditional employer, but we're a little more understanding and sympathetic to that. Yeah, so there's a number of things you can do. But it's a great question.
So in the world of special ed or even general ed, students are working towards getting an A, and they're working on trying to do a good job for themselves. But when they're at work, the goal isn't to get an A. The goal is to solve a business problem and satisfy a customer need efficiently and effectively. And so what you're asking the person to do isn't about them. It's about making a customer, you know, satisfied and solving a business problem. So that's a big leap for them to even think that way. That's very hard for them. So when we give them feedback, my daughter likes to do doll hair, but she likes to do in a very ostentatious, creative way. She often calls it overkill, which puts lots of bows and ribbons and so forth. I said, but you know, we're going to have an 8-year-old girl who wants the doll to look like it looks like in the American Girl catalog. You can't do it the way you want it. You have to do it the way, you know, the customer's expecting it. And that's very hard. And so thank goodness we have clinical professionals, because I'm not so good at giving that feedback.
So one thing that is in common really with everyone's program is that there are BCBAs or therapists or social workers or job coaches or other peer models that are working alongside these young adults. They're not just going into a particular job training skill or a job, in the case of words and spectrum designs, and being fully employed without any support. It is a supportive and nurturing environment.
And then it's faded as much as possible. You know, the goal of any good job coach is to be surplus to requirements, of course. So, yeah, that's what we expect, or try as much as possible.
Okay. Well, it's nearly, you know, time to wrap up. If there's any future questions, if anyone has any further questions, if anyone has, please let me know. How many people are set tomorrow to start their autism entrepreneurship venture? By a show of hands.
Don't raise your hands at once.
Raise your hands at once. Okay. Thank you. Thank you to this great panel and all the work that you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So firstly, let me say thank you to each of our panelists for sharing their experiences, their stories with us today. I want to thank all of our fantastic speakers and presenters for really making today the wonderful program that it was. Please join me in giving them one more round of applause. I know it's 4. We want to go very quickly. I want to thank everyone who helped make today possible and make it run smoothly. Beth Rosenberg, of course. Beth, thank you. Yardana Pressner and Ebony Bell, who helped me on my end, and without them, I wouldn't have been able to do today at all. John Nugent and our conference and banquet staff, Frank Ivanero and our AV team, Susan Cohn and our marketing department, and my colleagues in the caring department who volunteered their time to help today, Ellen Forrest and our Autism and Special Needs Committee, and of course, Debbie and Larry Hillebrand, without whom none of this would be possible. Lastly, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today in person, for joining us online, for being here, learning, sharing, asking questions, and engaging in this conversation. Please don't forget to complete your evaluation form and place it in the drop box on your way out. If you are registered for continuing education for social work, head back to where you registered and signed in, and we will get you taken care of there with your certificates. Thank you. We'll see you next year.
Thank you.
Yes, here you go.
Yes, I have. Mine are on my table, so let me give you mine.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.